I'm so done with this. Stop blaming this goddamn loss on Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. That is not why the election developed the way it did. If Biden would have stayed in this race, the results wouldn't have been any different from what they were about 2 weeks ago. But we would have actually done painfully worse than what we did with Kamala on the ballot. Like, seriously, we need to stop reckoning what did she need to do more, and what did she do to fail to win over the support of voters. Stop saying that this was a messaging problem and that she didn't do enough to talk about more of the working class and how to improve the economy. Stop saying that her loss is because the Democratic Party abandoned the working class. Like, literally, quit saying that she lost the election because Biden didn't exit the race soon enough. That's absolutely bullshit. She lost the election because this country is stupid as shit. There is no scenario where this loss, the blame of this loss, gets pinpointed to her. You cannot make this excuse that time. Literally, hundreds of economists endorsed her campaign for president. And it's because she ran on understandable populist economic policies to strengthen the middle class, like a middle-class tax cut for over 100 million Americans, a $6,000 child tax credit to help with families with newborn children so that they can afford the necessities that they need to take care of their child and start a prosperous family and life for their family. $25,000 in down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, with the goal of building 3 million new homes by the end of her first term so that home prices decrease. A deduction of $50,000 for small businesses, raising taxes on the ultra-wealthy, reducing the income inequality and making them pay their actual fair share to cover the cost of this, of all that stuff. She had 76 pages explaining her thorough economic proposals on her website. Donald Trump had 5 bullet points. This is not a joke either, at all. She talked about lowering costs for prescription drugs and expanding the cap on insulin at $35 a month for everyone and not just on Medicare, like people on Medicare like it is now. But what did Donald Trump talk about every day? Well, he never talked about anything that he would do to actually fix any of the problems that we face in this country. Nothing to fix the economy, nothing to fix inflation, lower gas prices, help with immigration, and all the issues that he attacked Biden and Harris for, but he never actually offered anything to resolve any of it. Instead, he talked about literally Arnold Palmer's dick. He said that Kamala Harris wasn't black, which is a lie. He called people names. He lied about the crime numbers. He danced for an hour at a town hall. It was supposed to be dedicated to answering the questions of undecided voters, quote-unquote undecided voters, because that's what a town hall is, answering questions from voters. And he made false and hurtful, devastating statements about Haitian migrants in an attempt to use fear-mongering in Springfield, Ohio, saying that they were eating the pets, which led to 30 bomb threats from his belligerent supporters targeting the city. He kept canceling meetings and interviews and events and anything to reject any attempt of explaining his platform and his policies, because he has none except for massive tariffs and mass deportations that only hurt the economy and place a levy on American consumers for products that get imported from other countries. The tariffs do. I mean, this is not a real country. Kamala she didn't even compete with Donald Trump. She had experience as VP, a senator from California, attorney general of California. She was a district attorney prosecutor. I mean, what the hell did Donald Trump have? He had a 4-year presidency filled to the brim with scandals, corruptions, lies, mishandlings of COVID, delayed response to COVID, broken promises to rebuild infrastructure, create jobs, revive the coal industry. He said he was going to offer a replacement to Obamacare in 2 weeks. That 2 weeks still hasn't been up, by the way, because he still hasn't offered any replacement plan for it. He bluffed that he was going to create manufacturing jobs and build plants, build a beautiful wall along the Mexico border, and make Mexico pay for it. He did none of these things. None. Kamala Harris broke ties in the Senate as presiding over the president of the Senate for infrastructure bill, gun safety legislation, climate action, chips manufacturing, saving union members' pensions, lowering costs of prescription drugs, ensuring that out-of-state protections for health care. She had an actual record to run on. 14 million jobs created since Biden and her took office. The lowest crime rate in 50 years. You can fact-check me on every one of these things. The lowest unemployment in 40 years. All-time stock market record highs. GDP growth. Our economy outpacing China in economic growth for the first time in 40-plus years. I mean, for coming out of a once-in-a-century pandemic, once again, that it was worse than it needed to be because of Trump's lack of action for coming out of this generational crisis. We did exceptionally well. We avoided a recession when we were on the brink of one, despite experts predicting and foreshadowing one, saying that there was going to be a crash when there was not. We turned around the failed executive approach on COVID. We got vaccines out to the public and stopped cases and deaths. So no, Kamala Harris did not fall short in this election because of her lack of detail in her policies or because she didn't resonate with voters enough. She ran the best goddamn campaign of the century. Just because she and Biden were set up for ravaging inflation and not a good enough economy and a spike in gas prices, which, by the way, is all inevitable when your predecessor hands over a mess like this, like no other in history before. These things come with it. And now that we've spent 4 years building America back, Donald Trump gets to enjoy and all the praise and the credit for a second time by riding the coattails of a booming economy that he didn't do shit to create. An administration does not just snap their fingers and magically come up with a good economy and low prices. It takes a long time, so shut the hell up. If voters actually understood how our government works and actually educated themselves on the issues of both of the candidates and actually read what they had to offer, Kamala Harris would have won every single state. But that's not the country we live in. We live in a country where uneducated people make up the majority of our country, and they look at gas prices and say, hey, that's a little too high for my liking. It must be Biden and Kamala's fault. When it's not. That's why they voted for Donald Trump, because they think back and they reminisce back to when he was president, and they say, oh, well, his economy wasn't really that bad for the first 3 years because of all of Obama's work to rebuild the economy after it was diminished by a Republican president. Almost like history repeats itself a little bit. And that didn't happen right away when Obama took over. No, it took about 4 years to dig us out of the hole that Bush put us in. The same thing is happening with Biden. Worst country on earth. I am telling you, it can't get much worse than this. It can't. It's sad. I don't know how else to describe it. It's sad. It's a sad world that we live in, and it's a sad country we live in. It's so distorted, and it's just double standard. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. And I never will. That's the problem. I never will get it. What do you got? A rapist, a criminal, a liar, a con artist, a grifter who knows nothing about politics, who went bankrupt 6 times and inherited money from his father and gave tax breaks to only the richest 1% and further broadened the gap between the middle class and the poor and the rich by making the rich richer and the middle class and poor, even poorer than they already are. And you had all of that versus an experienced and competent, qualified woman. And she lost. Despite all of those things. Because this country is dumber than a box of shit. That's what it is, folks.